there, Spiceheads! Thanks for hanging out with us for today's webinar, Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About the Flash Storage Phenomenon, brought to you by MicroAge and Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Before we get started, I do want to remind everyone this webinar is being recorded. If you have to step away for any reason, you'll get an email with a link to the video in just a couple days. Also, there's a Q&A box on your screen to the left, and I encourage you to submit your questions at any time during the presentation. If we're not able to get to your question live, someone will be able to follow up with you. And as usual, we also have a live chat, so join in by clicking the blue widget at the bottom of your screen. Now let's get started. Today's presenters are Dale Janda, Disaster Recovery and Storage Practice Manager for MicroAge, and Walt Kasha, Storage Category Manager with HPE. So Dale, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Thank you, Emily, and good morning, Spiceheads. As Emily mentioned, my name is Dale Janda. I am the Disaster Recovery and Storage Practice Manager here at MicroAge. So just kind of looking at MicroAge at a glance, who we are a leading provider of IT products and services. So we have, great partnerships across the board. We have a platinum level partnership with HPE. We were also founded in 1976, which is insane because we are coming up on our 40th anniversary this year. We are a nationwide IT solutions provider that does everything. It says from the data center to the desktop. We are working cloud to desktop now, so that's a new expansion for us this year. And a couple differentiators about us. We are objective and relationship-focused solution consultants with a passion for technology. I'm not a sales person at all. I am a technology evangelist. So my role here is to speak to the technology and what's out there for you guys. Our average account executives have about 12 years of IT experience, so they are well-versed in the IT landscape and the history of IT and how far it's come. Just a few of our partnerships, as mentioned, with Hewlett Packard Enterprise. We are a platinum partner, so we have a close, tight-knit partnership with HPE. And a little bit about my team. This is the practice management team. As mentioned, I am the Disaster Recovery and Storage Practice Manager. We also have a few others on my team. Perry Peterson is Virtualization and Compute. Jason Lasseray is Security and Networking. And Phil Tuckwiller is Telecom and Collaboration. So our contact information is on there. If you guys have any questions about any of those technologies, feel free to reach out. Other than that, I will now hand it over to Walt.
Good morning, Spiceheads. This is Walt Kasha. I'm the Storage Category Manager, and I support MicroAge and our partners throughout the West. And I'm here to talk to you about our Flash-enabled storage and really how you can supercharge your organization, whether it be the small, medium, or even large enterprise. And Flash is really a game changer. So when we look at Flash, we have to kind of look at three different, from an HPE perspective, really there's three types of solutions that you could choose from. And I'm going to cover all three today. First is going to be our StoreVirtual 3200, which we just brought out. And then we have our MSA 2042. And then, of course, we've got our lighthouse, really more for the SME and the enterprise, our 3-PAR 8200 entry product. So when you look at what's happening to the industry, we're seeing that there's disruption going on in every market, whether it be Airbnb and the hotel industry, Uber and the taxi industry, right? Netflix in terms of the cable companies and just how you get your, the entertainment, and of course Facebook in terms of communication media that's really doing so much. But all of these companies, the thing that all these companies have in common is when you look at what's happened over the last 5 and 10 years, most of these companies didn't even exist. And so these days it's very difficult to predict what that demand is going to be when you look at your storage and your infrastructure, and how do you anticipate this? So I think one thing you have to consider when you're making these buying decisions is flexibility. And understanding that, I want Flash, I want this SSD, I want to supercharge my storage and really enable my applications to perform faster, quicker, better responsiveness. But I also have to understand I want to grow that system as time goes on. I don't necessarily know what I need today, but I need flexibility in being able to expand that in the future. So that you look then at the options and you kind of say to yourself, I've got different approaches in terms of IT operations. I've got an IT-driven environment because it depends on kind of what your company is at, what place it is, and where it is in that timeline, right? In terms of maturity, is it starting out? Is it well established? And so you can have cost and ops-driven IT where it's all about what can I do to reduce my cost. And I've got to continually, and I go more towards those packaged applications, and I'm really looking, my metrics are how do I keep driving those costs lower and lower and lower. And then the other option is really looking at the internet-enabled mobile experience, right? Bring your own devices. What am I doing to ensure productivity, maximize productivity, and take full advantage of the technology changes as they come out? And of course, there's cloud, and you can't go anywhere or not and not think about or hear about cloud. So we've got ways to really address IT operations, but we come from different vantage points. And HPE is really positioned with MicroAge to really help drive this solution into your organization. So you can see here that we've got really sort of two different approaches, right? There's the all-flash data center where we've got 3PAR, we'll have flash enabled, again, with our StoreVirtual and our MSA. And this is more on the system-defined side. But then StoreVirtual also has sort of a multiple personalities where I can go with the software-defined, just software only, use my own compute or repurpose systems. And it's the software-defined data center, right, that composable data fabric. So I've got two different approaches depending on what you're looking at and what your needs are. And then we can tie this all together with HP OneView, and then we can protect this data with our StoreOnce purpose-built appliance. So we can provide that end-to-end storage and solution, whether you're looking at the system-defined approach, which is more that traditional, or the software-defined data center. When you're looking at affordability, when you're looking at performance, and you're looking at that how does that and services and the capabilities of your products, right? There's a lot of different competitors out there that you have to look at and try to figure out what makes sense here, and how do I figure out which ones I need? Because there's trade-offs when you start looking across the landscape, whether it be lack of deduplication, whether it be being forced down the all-flash route, whether I might want a hybrid approach because I don't want to flash enable every application, right? There's cost. There's the ability to migrate data without having to bring it offline. Again, those SLAs. So we've got different approaches, and one thing that HPE has done recently is we've really kind of focused and doubled down on storage and servers and networking, and we've taken businesses that historically, would have been in some ways distractions or kept us from focusing, and so we've now kind of really slimmed down and leaned up as opposed to other companies that have kind of expanded, and in a lot of ways there's a lot of bloat and a lot of rationalization that still needs to take place. So you look at Flash itself and how's it driving, what's happening with Flash, and why are companies, if you're on the fence or you're considering Flash, what is it that is something that's going to cause you to push the button or sign the check, right? When we start looking at things in terms of productivity, being able to quadruple the number of projects, right? Being able to reduce the number of refreshes or the migration time from servers as I move from different storage applications, reducing my licensing costs by 50%, because now the same storage can handle and support multiple hosts as well as also being able to supply and provide that level of performance that you're looking for. And, of course, operational workload. I mean, these are all factors if you're looking at an IT ops-driven environment. And even if you're not and you're looking for an on-premise solution, these are all factors that you're going to be looking at to say, how can I be more productive? How can I reduce my CapEx and OpEx? and how can I actually transform my business to be more competitive and take advantage of the technologies and be able to react to the market with real-time analytics, being able to identify, hotspots and be able to adjust my infrastructure on the fly. Those are all factors that we see our customers every day being faced with, and that's really what HPE is designed, our products and solutions are built and designed to do. So I want to focus now on really our two areas right now. This is more our entry and small medium business storage solutions, and also for remote office, branch office environments, for even the enterprise environments, right, is really our StoreVirtual 3200 and then our MSA 2042. The 3200 is really our, it's got a low starting price point, but you certainly can grow and expand, as you'll see in a moment here. It's really for flexibility, and as I mentioned before, we also have the ability, this is part of that software-defined world, where I can actually just take the software, our VSA virtual software appliance, and actually apply that to compute. So I've got options there with my 3200, and the MSA 2042 is really our 2040 if you're familiar with it, and we've added some additional features and functions, capabilities to it in terms of SSD drives, as well as some additional software options that now are at a very, very attractive price point. So we've got two ways to approach it, and I first want to really talk about the 3200 because I think this is really what we're super excited about. We just released it, and it's really got I guess both our customers as well as partners having a buzz at what we can do and how we're really changing the game. So first of all, the entry starting point is 6K. Now this is for 4 drives, but we can build and grow this system. It's really designed to deploy in just a few minutes and it's got a very, very small learning curve. The idea is it's really built to be intuitive. We designed the interface from ground zero up, and if you're familiar with our 3-part products, it's got that same kind of look and feel. We can also take over 2,000 snapshots with this, and we can grow this system, right, as we add additional drives to the controllers based on needs, based on capacity requirements. And if you're familiar with our hyperconverged as well as our VSA, again, we're using the same DNA, we're using the same OS that you've seen in these other systems, and we're going to continue to build out what you'll see here today. This is really the starting point, not the end point. So a little bit more details on the system itself. It's a 2U dual controller system, and if you're familiar with the StoreVirtual, or what used to be called left hand, right, this was something where I really had a single controller and I would add additional StoreVirtual systems as I wanted to build it out up to 16 nodes, where this is really designed to start off as a basic all-in-one solution with redundancy, hot swappable drives, power supply fans, controllers. And again, you've also got flexibility in terms of whether you want to have small form factor, you can put 25 slots in, or go to a larger form factor. The idea also is that you've got both scale up and then you'll have scale out. So scale up, I mean that I can go ahead and add additional drives. We can add 3 more enclosures to this system, so I could have 100 small form factor drives total. And this is where, and I'll talk a little bit more about the capabilities and the choices you have in terms of these drives. Also, I've got 12 gig SAS support, as well as, like I say, we're going to be able to do scale out as by the end of this year, where we're going to be able to add additional nodes to the system itself, to the cluster. Multi-core, and it's really designed, to be robust and to really scale. You've got a few options in terms of the ports per controller, 2 and 4, and I'll cover that in a moment. But as you can see, it's got the base, it's got what it needs now to kind of build and grow this system. So this is where you can see it's simple and easy to configure. You have several options. Like I say, we've got a base enclosure where I could go with a 2-controller system with small form factor slots, but I can add enclosures, and this is unique to the 3200, where I can add additional enclosures to the system itself and not have to buy a fully populated system. Again, when I just need another terabyte of storage, I don't have to go and buy a whole nother fully configured system. And this was the case that you would have had in the past, even with our StoreVirtual, our 4000 series, right? So now I've got a base system, and time goes on, I can go ahead and add an enclosure or another enclosure. And I've also got the ability to add in terms of host connectivity. I've got a 4 gig, 1 gig iSCSI 8-port as well. And then I've got my 10 gig E 4-port as well as my 4-port 8 and 16 fiber channel. So there's a lot of flexibility here in terms of the needs, but also in terms of the base system, but also as you build out this system, you'll have that same added flexibility. That's really the key, because we talked about the Uber, we talked about Airbnb, we talked about these businesses that really couldn't have anticipated the explosive growth that they've had, but now oftentimes we find our customers get locked into an architecture, and it really was never designed to scale. It was never designed to grow the way they need to adjust to the needs of the business. So you can see now that we've got the system itself is simple and easy to configure, but what makes it so different? What's its secret sauce? And this is where you can see that we've got an ARM processor in here. This helped reduce our cost. This is why we can be at that 6K level starting point. And it also gives us faster performance over our 4000 series. I talked to you about our scale-up capabilities in terms of being able to have software defined, and we're also going to, again, expand on this in our hyper-converged offerings in our 380 and going forward. We've also redesigned the UI, again, to make it simple and easy to administer and manage. So I'm talking to you about the ARM processor. It's a 64-bit multi-core, right? Lower power consumption, which is key these days, especially if we're focused on green and reducing our OpEx costs, right? We've also got REST API, so you can go ahead and use your own applications. It's adaptable. And you can also go ahead and take that dual controller, right, and start off, but you can add and expand with additional nodes to the system itself. And the other thing, too, is that the RAID is really, we're starting off with a RAID 0 instead of RAID 10. If you're familiar with, again, with the old P4000 and our left-hand StoreVirtual would have been RAID 10. Again, that's doubling essentially the amount of capacity that you're going to have now with the RAID 0. You can see the UI here. It's simple, easy to use, dashboard. You've also got an analytics dashboard, which is fabulous. So it gives you information proactively on your storage, on your capacity, on hotspots, on what's going on here. And we also have this ability to phone home, where, phone into HPE. So we're going to be able to provide, MicroAge as well as yourselves information on your system so that there's ways to do health checks and go back in and look and see as you start to get close to full capacity, right, or 70, 80% usage, you can now go ahead and say, look, I need to go ahead and expand and add another enclosure. Then you see here, we talked a little bit about the scalability of this system, and you can see that we can start off with a large form factor up to my 288 terabytes and my small form factor, again, starting off with our 2 terabytes, and we can go all the way up to 200 terabytes. And this is with our 6 terabyte drives, but again, we've got flexibility here with 4, 2, 4, and 6. So there's plenty of room here for growth, whichever way you want to go. And this is, again, the entry starting point with these enclosures. And then, as I said, by year's end, what you'll see is we'll have the ability to add scale out, so I can support up to 16 nodes, not just, in this case, one base system with 4 enclosures, but I can actually add 16 more. Think of it as base systems itself, with the 25 drives or 12 large form factor drives. And this is where you see now that what we've got here is we're adding this mixed workload support, what we've always had, that allows you to you're not locked into an all-flash offering, because does every application, you need to ask yourself, does every application have to be flash-enabled? Do you have to have it supercharged, right? Do you need 100,000 IOPS? Or can you get by with the lower number of IOPS? Or do you want to take data that's cold or warm and move it down to lower cost storage? And that's what we offer here in terms of flexibility, where I've got my 10K small form factor, 15K, as well as my SSDs that we can scale all the way up to 3.2 terabytes. So again, a lot of flexibility gives you that choice to grow this system. This is that system that you're going to continue to use and use and use as time goes on, as you add controllers, as you add nodes, as you add capacity. And this shows you kind of what happens when you do supercharge and flash enable your system, right? So let's say you just have your hard disk, but you want to go ahead and add, some SSDs for caching purposes, right? You can add, and we'll talk about the 2042, but we can add 2 SSDs to start to kind of give me that caching and increased capability. But I can also create another tier with up to with 4 SSD drives. So this is where I can again move that hot data down to warm and cold onto those near lines and spinning disks. And you can see what happens here when we go from hard disks, just plain disks themselves, 10Ks, and then we go ahead and add my 4 SSD drives. You can see what happens in my IOPS, and I go from 7 all the way up to 12 for my read intensive from mixed workload. So huge performance gains. And for those of you, again, familiar with the StoreVirtual 4000, you get a little bit of sense here in terms of the pricing and what it would have cost you. In terms of the requirements, again, RAID 10, and that I'd have a minimum of 2 nodes. Well, in this case now, I can just go with 1 node at 14K, or I can go, again, with a 2-controller system, right, where I want to go ahead and add additional. As time goes on and I can get to 28K compared to 65K, you can see huge differences in price. Again, very cost effective. And then we really add and sweeten the pie when we start looking at the software that comes with this system itself. The base comes with thin provisioning, right? The thin reclamation so that when I delete data, I can bring it back into the pool of information. And we've got high availability. We've got cruise lines right now that run these systems where they've got on the port and aft side, you've got the ability to have redundancy. And if I need to bring a system down, I can go ahead and bring it down for maintenance or upgrades and still keep the other part of the ship on the other StoreVirtuals that are all communicating with each other to make sure that I've got that high availability, that I've got that redundancy. So it gives me a lot of flexibility here, but I've got a pool of storage that allows me then to take advantage and recycle and reuse. And again, thin provisioning, as you're familiar with, is the ability to go in and return, only use storage that only write the data when we have a volume, it's empty. And as I write data, it starts to fill up. But I can provision, 10 terabytes, 20 terabytes, but it doesn't count against it until I start to add data to it. But when I delete the data, that data is returned back to that pool. We also got snapshots up to 2,000 snapshots, as well as my smart clones that I can go ahead and do templates and create multiple clones from one snapshot. And then also volume migration. But the network RAID 0 is one I definitely want to make sure you take note of here because this is a real cost saver. The fact that I can go ahead and take full advantage of and have the 4 nines and 5 nines redundancy here with the RAID that I've got. And, of course, my user-friendly management console as well as the call home capabilities. But then I can go ahead and add the advanced data services suite for my adaptive optimization. So if I've gone ahead and put those SSD drives into the system itself, I can move that data again from the SSDs down to my nearlines or my lower cost disks. Also, it comes with that includes remote copy for replicating to another site. As well as my migration manager, we have the ability, if you have a P4000 or a StoreVirtual 4000, you can migrate to the 3200. So we talked a little bit more about the RAID 0, RAID 10. This just kind of gives you a little bit more details to it. I'm going to skip over that and just move. We talked about adaptive optimization. This is, again, how you would move that data down from my, let's say, Tier 0, my SSD drives. In this case, I've got Tier 1 where I've got 7 hard disks. And I can now move that data around as need be. And again, you can see my dual controllers, so they all have access to these drives at the same time. So I've got complete redundancy in the event that I lost one of the controllers for whatever reason, right? This is key because when you've got this system and you build on this and grow this, you can't afford to have it bringing down, 5, 10, 20, 100 VMs. That's the whole point. And you can see here that we've got asynchronous replication. And by year's end, you'll see that we'll be also bringing out the synchronous replication as well as that scale-out feature I mentioned to you. And that's also one other thing that's going to come with that is peer motion, the ability to move data from one 3200 to another 3200, again, online, non-disruptively. These things are all coming, as well as you can see here sort of the back of the systems. We'll also have an RJ45 10 gig for those of you that are looking for the iSCSI option, but you've got fiber channel as well as the 2 ports or 4 ports per array. And then, of course, we've got our controller. We've talked a little bit about this before, remote lights out, USB serial port, as well as my 8 gig NVDIMM, and then my basic design, in terms of how we protect against power failures. The CPU cache is flushed to the DRAM DIMM, and then, power for the DIMM is switched to battery, right? So the goal is never lose data, always protect that data, and then it's backed up to the non-volatile flash memory. And then the software restores the data back. So the idea is no loss of data and continuity. These are just some of the quotes that you're seeing here. It really is a testimonial. We've sold thousands of these StoreVirtual 4000s, and we just brought the 3200. And again, huge buzz around this offering. And now let's talk about the 2042 and where does it stack rank. And you can see here we've talked about the 2040 and the MSA 1040. This is really now we're taking the 2040 and we're adding some additional functionality to that, which is going to give me my 2 400 gig SSD drives as well as my advanced data services package, right? And when you see here, again, these advanced data services suite consists of my 512 snapshot upgrade, remote snapshot replication, as well as sub-tiering, similar to what the adaptive optimization I talked to you about before for the 3200. And the idea here is really about cost. How can I make a cost-effective solution? The scalability in terms of performance right now, we're at about 60,000 IOPS for the StoreVirtual 3200. When we start looking at the 2042, we're at about 120,000. But you're going to see that change. But this is now, if you're looking for that next level up, you're looking at about a $12,000 entry point for our large form factor, small form factor, both SAN, as well as SAS offering. We have SAS in the MSAs, and again, we've got our fiber channel and iSCSI for our 3200. And you can see, as I said, it comes with 2 400 gig SSD drives, the auto-tiering function. But when you start adding all these options together, as well as warranty support, 9x5 telephone support, if I took all these different options I mentioned here before, remote snap, auto-tiering, as well as snapshot software, that'd be about 28,000, and we're giving this whole solution package to you for $12K. So this is really what we consider a great value play when you're looking at, again, remote office, branch offices, or you're looking for your small business. And I'll cover in a moment sort of how we would position one versus another and where you would go with it. Gives you a little bit more detail on the back end to it. You'll have these slides so you'll be able to look through them in more detail. And, of course, this kind of shows you what I mentioned before, kind of summarizes the 2042 and 1040. You'll notice that everything is standard for the 2042, whereas if you were just doing the 2040, let's say you had already it was your current standard, you didn't want to go and test and revalidate this solution, you could just go ahead and get the 2040s if you want. But again, with the 2042, you get the advanced data services options all built in, along with those SSD drives. And this shows you, again, what we see here when we start adding SSDs and you start seeing the difference between hard disks. We go from 5,000 all the way up into 15,000, again, boost, and then we get another 4.5 times if we get to a tiered environment. So the idea is you're going to get that performance, but you get to pick and choose sort of like whether you want to put 2 SSDs into it and just keep that for caching purposes, or actually create another tier and add another 2 more to create that auto tier, to take advantage of auto tiering. I want to give you a little comparison now between the two and sort of where you understand where it would work. Ideally, our customer that's looking to 3200, they have a scale-out foundation, right? They're looking for software-defined, and they're seeing sort of the hyper-converged future. The 2042, it's the dual controller system. It's based on the ProLiant as opposed to the ARM processor for the 3200, but it's a proven workhorse. It's been out there, and we've got thousands of these in use. Virtualization is another category in the SMB, small number of VMs, scale out, again, MSA 42, larger numbers, applications, again, there's a lot of overlap here. You can certainly use SQL, Oracle, as well as email, MS apps on both of these, as well as the IP video surveillance is a great market for the 3200, where you want the lowest cost shared storage option. 2042, telco, seismic, healthcare, oil and gas, those are our customers currently using it. And this kind of gives you a little bit more in terms of the comparisons at a technical level, where you can see some of the differences here. More options with a 3200, as you'll see, but again, you have the SaaS offering with a 2042. That will come with a 3200 over time, as well as you've got more capabilities in terms of the scale out once we bring out scale out with a 3200. But again, higher performance right now, 120,000 random read-write ops, where you're going to be seeing closer to 69, 70,000, but that'll change as you add more nodes to the system and you take advantage of the scale-out architecture. And this kind of shows you where the pricing is. We're starting down in sort of, our StoreVirtual low-cost SAN, MSA's the higher level, and then of our 3-part 8200 is a unified flash file and block. StoreEasy is also our gateway into 8200 as well as for our general purpose NAS. And you can see here, again, when we look at SaaS, the MSA is really the main offerings. These are some additional training materials that if you're interested to learn more about. And I want to talk a little bit more about our 3-par and where we at. This is our lighthouse product. This is really what we consider as a entry-level, high-end SMB, or for customers that are really looking for that big performance, the enterprise services capabilities, the quality of service, bandwidth, throttling, a lot of features that I'm going to cover here right now, and you can see where we're at with this product itself. Again, when we look at the 3200, 2042, and now the 8200, right? First of all, we talked a little bit more about the competition and what's out there. The landscape is very confusing, but when you start looking at performance, affordability, and enterprise class, you'll see that you get very, very few. You'll see a lot of products out there that claim to be affordable, but are they fast? Or you'll see that they have the performance, but do they have the enterprise capabilities? Can they do online migration? Can they do from competitive products, for instance? Can you take and move data from one array to another as you go and upgrade? Do you have the ability to do synchronous, asynchronous, and periodic replication? Can I take full advantage of my hybrid work architecture, where I could go ahead and, as I mentioned before, auto-tiering, and I move data automatically from hot down to cold or warm? These are enterprise capabilities we'll talk more about, but this is where the sweet spot is really where 3-par sits. And when I look here and I can see the affordability, performance, enterprise class, just give you a little bit of idea. We're talking in terms of $1.20 a gig usable as far as our all-flash SSD offering. Lightning fast, 3 million IOPS when we start looking at our SPC2 and SPC1 benchmarks, as well as scalability. Now, a lot of you will never use 24 petabytes, but the fact that we offer that size as well as 6.9's availability, the enterprise class, that's what you're getting. And the key point here is it's a single interface, one feature, one workload, file and block all together. This is something that the competition that you'll see out there doesn't offer. They'll have bolt-ons. You'll have the ability, if you want to do synchronous, you'll have to add additional products that increase the cost and complexity. If you want to do deduplication, it's not available. Or if you want to do a hybrid architecture where I want to have mixed workload, again, not an option. It's either all flash or nothing. And then you start looking at the price and the overhead of 28% versus 42% or higher. What's the usable cost really what's it going to cost you? What's it going to take to run? So this is where you can see our offering. Again, the single platform that starts at the 8200, and it scales all the way up into our 2850. And you'll notice here we'll see a 8450 as well as a 2450. Just so you can read this chart, this is a 2-node architecture. This is where we have 4 nodes in the 8400. The 8440 is a hybrid. 8450 is our all-flash offering. Again, 450 designates all-flash, as well as this is our 8-node, our high-end. The idea, though, is it's a single platform, single architecture that scales up. So what I can run and operate down here with an 8200, I can replicate all the way to my 2850 into my data center. So I can put these in my remote office, branch offices. Well, again, maximum flexibility, especially for our enterprise, small enterprise customers. And this kind of gives you a sense here of what we've been doing and how we've been innovating and really kind of leading the way when you look at flash. We started off here down in the, the 920 gigabyte drives in 2013. We went to our 1.92 in 2014, and you'll notice the jump. In 2013, 920 gigabytes of a drive, and then we went to 2015, 3.84 terabytes, and now this year we introduced a 7.68 terabyte and a 15.36 drives that are coming out at the year end. So you can see we're continually advancing. And the point I guess I want to get across here is that 3PAR was really optimized for flash. It wasn't designed for flash because the NVDIMMs and the next level and the next way to increase performance is just around the corner. But the idea is we've optimized with and really offloaded processing that otherwise would be done in the Intel processors, right, on our ASICs that are really designed to do deduplication, that will provide compression, that will provide functionality and thin provisioning that otherwise allows us to use the compute within the processors to really do what we need it to do in terms of increasing the overall performance, both combining the ASICs as well as the processors together. And you see here what's happened in terms of the footprint as we've continually added and expanded the SSDs. This is something that, again, you're not going to see the competition telling you about because a lot of them are still running the 920 gigs or the 1.92s, and we're up into 3.84s, but now we're at, again, 7.68s. But you can see the size, the number of terabytes per rack. We're at 286 terabytes now per rack. Think of that from a real estate space in terms of your data center, or 138. And what's happened from just June of last year to June of this year? We've doubled, and now we're at 563. So we've got higher density, and we've got a much lower cost per gigabyte. And you'll see as we bring out our next level of data compaction technologies, you'll see that we're going to be lowering our cost per gig even lower than the $1.20 down into the below $1 range that is really going to dramatically lower our cost further. And we also take advantage of these features. Again, it's not just about performance and efficiency. It's really recognizing that you have to have the scalability of a system that I can grow. And our 8200, we can bring that over to 1 petabyte of storage. We've got application integration. We got 6 nines guaranteed uptime. That's 28 seconds a year. We've also got the ability, and the reason why we can do this is we can do things like online migration. Without bringing those systems down. We can take competitive, products out there, whether it be my EMC or whether it be my NetApp, and I can move that data over to my 3PAR, again, without bringing those systems down. If you're looking at HPE and you're saying, I think I'm ready for a change, especially with the uncertainty and a lot of the changes going on, especially when you don't know what's going to happen to the storage investments that you've made and what's going to change and what's going to suddenly become end of life. You're seeing that we're still running 7000 series of our 3PARs, and you can use these same drives on those 7000 series. Again, it's the same OS release, the same platform. Disaster recovery, I mentioned, we've got synchronous, asynchronous, as well as periodic. So you've got maximum flexibility, whether you're doing geo clusters or whether you're doing stretch clusters, and you're in the financial and healthcare industry where you can't afford more than 2 milliseconds. But then we can also do asynchronous, and we can get up to 50 milliseconds, right? As well as periodic. Again, in the event that I've got low bandwidth or drops, I can get down to 5 minutes. I've got that data mobility or peer motion, as well as FIPS security, both at rest as well as in flight. And also, very unique is that we've got both file and block, again, for user and home directories. I can use the same architecture, the same platform, the same provisioning, all the capabilities that you have here that I mentioned, and I can use it for file. And I don't have to have another bolt-on solution or a third solution or fifth solution or sixth solution into my whole product mix and adding to my OpEx and complexity. So this is where I talked to you a little bit about our ASIC. It's our mesh active cluster. We're on the Gen 5. We'll be bringing out our Gen 6s. And again, every volume exists behind every drive node and port. We can do maximum HA. You can't offer 6 nines unless you can make sure you've got redundancy not just at the drive level, but the cage level, as well as the node and controller level. This is where we take our 4-node architecture, and you can lose 2 nodes, right? You can go ahead and you've got maximum high availability. That's, again, how 3PAR was designed. We've also got wide striping. So, again, the idea is I can cross internal resources, so I avoid hotspots. I avoid being able to have one drive or one set of drives run out faster. Again, I break my drives down into 1 gigabyte chunklets. Again, allows me to get the maximum performance and optimization from the systems itself. And not to forget, we've got to think about data protection. When you look at my 3PAR, I really have 4 ways to do it. I can do synchronous or asynchronous or periodic. I can actually do peer persistence, where I can put 3 hosts up to a single array or multiple arrays. So in the event that I've got one array that needs to go down for maintenance, or I need to go ahead and do some updates or changes, I have the other array, so there's no loss, there's no downtime. Again, this is the whole point of getting those 6 nines. So I've got the different types of replication, but I've also got Recovery Manager Central, where I can take snapshots and then take deltas of those snapshots and write them to our Store Once purpose-built appliance device. And again, this can take and reduce my backup times by 23 times faster. What would have taken 23 hours can take you as little as an hour. So when you think of the differences and what it changes to your SLAs, it's huge. Again, a lot of flexibility, and we can cover that in more detail if you have more questions. HP, again, 20th Century Fox. We've got Nuance Communications, where you may be familiar with, rumor has it Siri has something to do with that, as well as the different types of products that are out here. Microsoft, Verizon Wireless, DreamWorks. These are companies that they can't afford. Their data is their business, right? Just like yours, and you really have to, Salesforce Marketing Cloud. The idea here is you need that uptime. So lastly, just to kind of summarize it, enterprise class features, as I mentioned, not just performance, not just pricing that we talked about, $1.20 a gig. Common platform, same architecture, same interface. Again, simple to use. Same interface you'll see in the 3200, similar one in the 3PAR. Again, designed for midline to enterprise, optimized for mixed workloads. You don't have to purchase all flash when you don't need it. You can now have hybrid. You can have your spinning disk. You can have your flash where you need it for those flash-enabled applications. But you don't need special tuning. We have automatic adaptive optimization to move that data down automatically without having to tune or change or make adjustments to the system. I can take advantage of my latest SSD technology, the 7.68s I mentioned now. Ask, when you're looking at other competitors out there, other products, find out, what are they currently running? Are they running 7.68s? When are there 15 terabyte support coming? Right? Also, do they have the ability to move data from one array to another array without bringing the systems down, without having to do forklift upgrades for a zero downtime migration? Do they offer quality of service? Can I control my bandwidth to make sure that I don't get a noisy neighbor or certain apps taking more of the bandwidth? These are all factors you need to think about when you're looking at your primary storage and looking to say, what can I use to make sure my business runs optimally with the highest level of performance? And this lastly shows you kind of where we're at here in terms of connectivity, the capabilities we talked about with 3PAR, comparing my StoreVirtual MSA and 3PAR. Performance, you can see here, we're up to 3.2 million IOPS, random read, again, on our high-end systems, 75 gigs per second sequential reads. But again, down in the low-end StoreVirtual, this will do 60,000 IOPS, and we'll see it. You can expect it to do, close to 100,000 or more as we start to add more nodes. Up in the MSA, we're at 120,000, right? You can see the kind of environments. There's some overlap here between the different types of video surveillance. Again, MSA is a great fit for that. Microsoft apps, SMB, Robo, Enterprise, but also when you're looking at cloud virtualized, 3PAR was really designed around virtualization. But we take full advantage of the different hypervisors out there, whether it be Hyper-V, whether it be VMware. And the idea is it's really, again, that enterprise and service provider environment. Key features, we talked about multi-tenancy, flash deduplication that you're seeing here. I've got in the dual controller, the MSA controller, it's a price performance, right? And then StoreVirtual, it's my entry point. Where do I want to start? So that's really it. And I'd like to open it up, turn it back to Emily, and we can see if we can answer your questions, if anybody has any regarding the products. I know we covered a lot of material here, and there's some leave-behinds that you'll have to kind of dive deeper into it. But we're also available for questions. And MicroAge, again, fabulous partner. They're really there to serve you and to provide that guidance, that expertise to really, they're certified on all our products. They know how to service them, take care of them, and really provide that level of support that you need to manage your storage environment and your configurations. So that's it.
All right, fantastic. Thanks so much for that presentation. If you've got a question, go ahead and pop it in the Q&A, and we'll try and get that answered live. And if we're unable to get it answered, we will take that offline. So let's see. Our first question is from John. He wants to know, does the MSA have a single back plane?
Go ahead, Dave.
It is
Why
a
don't
single
you
back
take
plane
that one?
Right, it's a single back plane with dual lanes.
Does that answer your question?
I think so. Let's see. Chris wants to know, which product would you recommend for a 500-user VDI environment to handle boot storms, etc.?
I would probably look at the I think you could go with certainly the StoreVirtual when you're looking VDI. Again, if you're looking at file and block, right? 3PAR is certainly a product of choice, but when you look at, because it supports both user home directories and VDI, but I think you can also look at the StoreVirtual 3200. Any one of them can support it. Question is what's the growth going to be? How do you expect it to be 1,000 users in 2 years? And how much storage do you expect to be consumed? But I would say the 3PAR is the safest choice, but the 3200, as we bring out scale out, will certainly cover your needs, but we've also got MSAs out there running in that environment as well.
All right, fantastic. Jim would like to know, can these systems use a mix of SSDs and standard HDDs, and will performance suffer?
Absolutely they can. All three of the systems, the 3200, the MSA 2042, as well as our 3PAR 8200 and our platform can absolutely support mixed environments where I've got SSDs as well as I've got my spinning disk. Now, with the MSA and 3200, the 3200, as I mentioned, right, both of those will support the SSDs, and I've got different levels, different size SSDs that I can go ahead and run in those systems. The 2042 comes with two 400 gig SSDs, again, for caching purposes. But I've also got the ability, and in both the 2042 as well as 3200, I can put in 4 SSDs and really create that's the minimum for my auto tier to take advantage and be able to move that hot, that warm and cold data down from my SSD drives. The 3PAR 8200, again, that whole platform fully supports mixed workload. In fact, that's one of the big advantages we have when you look at the all-flash vendors. You don't have that choice, whereas with all three of these, I can go automatically will move that data and migrate it based on monitoring and seeing what happens to those disks and when do we need to move them down based on usage and frequency.
Yeah, if I could add to that. So
Please do.
in a single tier architecture, where we're used to using 10,000 or 15,000 SSDs, the system will perform very, very well. However, when you start adding the second tier, say you have spinning disk and you add SSD or vice versa, the system will perform even faster because it's able to balance hot and cold blocks. So we encourage all of our users to definitely architect at least 2 tiers in the system.
That's perfect. In fact, I think I covered some of the graphs that you can see the performance gains from 7x to 12x when you're looking at our 3200, and you can see where we can get up to 4.5 times by adding those extra SSDs in that tier.
Great. And just a reminder, audience members, there are resources in your resource list, some brochures and data sheets that you can download in regards to the products that we talked about today. Let's see. Going back to the questions, Jason wants to know, can the MSA 2042 and the StoreVirtual 3200 be deployed together during a transition period?
When you say deployed together, I mean, in other words, you're saying that you may be running the MSA today and you're looking to migrate to a 3200, if that's the understanding, as you start to move over. There's no reason why these can't coexist. The idea is, and in fact, what we'll see here in time is the ability to move data from these different platforms over to the 3200. As I mentioned with the 3200, that's really our newest platform. It was designed for ground zero. It's got our StoreVirtual 12.6 OS release right now, and it's really what you're going to see going forward as we go in that software-defined and we continue to expand on that into hyper-converged. You're going to see that as where we're going to be placing our bigger bets in the future. So you're going to be able to, we'll have migration strategies. Again, we have a migration strategy already from the StoreVirtual 4000 over to the 3200, but we'll also have migration strategies from other platforms over to it. I hope that answered the question.
Great. Jim would like to know, do any of these systems provide NVMe support?
Dave, you want to take that one?
Sure. So we do not support NVMe hard drives. If you did notice, the RAM on board the controllers is NVMe RAM.
Exactly.
All right.
Now, I will say this. For the 3PAR, again, I said that it was optimized for flash. I didn't say it was designed. And that's an important distinction because as we look to the future and we see NVMe and we see what's going to happen with those drives, again, our HPE engineering is working on these right today. I mean, this isn't anything that's, and we can expect to see that next level of performance expectations around it. And that's why we have our ASICs. That's why we have the ability to kind of separate off functions that we would normally put on the Intel processor onto our ASICs. And so you'll be seeing that support coming out from them, probably on the 3PAR platform ahead of the other ones.
Right, and our numbers that we have, this is for everybody to use. We have roughly 4,000 IOPS per solid-state drive. That's a read-write balanced hard drive, and upwards of 9,000 IOPS for a heavy write-intensive drive. So if you look at a 15,000 RPM drive, that's 180 IOPS. So significant numbers. Our numbers are one solid-state drive in a traditional read-write environment is equal to 22 15,000 RPM drives in IOPS, right? And then you look at the sizes. Today we have sizes anywhere from 400 gigabyte all the way up to 7 terabytes. So what used to be a very niche market just 5-6 years ago, today is a fully mature product with a wide portfolio.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Dave.
Great. Brian asks, why the change from RAID 10 to RAID 0, and how do you protect the data?
That's a great question. So in the P4000, right, it really, we didn't have a dual controller environment. They were single controllers. And so you really needed RAID 10 to give you that level of protection, right? With their dual controllers, our dual power supplies, dual fans, the HA built in, the redundancy built in, our goal was to really reduce the cost of our 3200 at a price point that made sense, especially in the entry level and the midline area. So by going from RAID 10 down to RAID 0, you now have the ability to, again, you get twice as much storage, usable storage from that. But you certainly have the RAID 10 option, and you can do that. In fact, if you want to increase the number of 9s, that's one thing that you certainly can do. But again, the idea is that RAID 0, we feel that the RAID 0 is going to provide you that level of redundancy and availability that you need. But as we bring out scale out, you'll see that will continue to, and you may in fact want to go to a RAID 10 architecture.
Great. Monica would like to know, does having a hybrid flash and disk storage environment help in migration to an all-flash-based storage?
You know, a hybrid, it's not a prerequisite to have a hybrid architecture, but what hybrid does do is it allows you to stick your toe in the water of flash and look and build a business case around it for specific applications and show and prove that value out to the business lines of business. And so what it does is it gives you that transition point that then you can go ahead and go to an all-flash as you start to flash enable those applications, and you get responses back, whether it be from support, marketing, finance, and others, and they say, well, why is this application so much faster than these applications? And it's because you flash enabled them. Or in the case of, like I say, 3PAR, you have the ability to control and set bandwidth and quality of service. So I can take and control which applications within my array are actually flash enabled and stay on that SSD tier as opposed to my hybrid tier. So it's not a prerequisite in terms of migration, but it's certainly something that I think can help you build the case and help you kind of get that familiarity and set expectations. Dave, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, you know, it's really like building a sports car, right? How much performance do I really need? And we have a number of tools to help you assess what your IOP requirements are, right? So there's back-end IOPS and front-end IOPS, and not getting too technical, but it comes down to what do you really need. Most of our customers are typically in that 10 to 20,000 IOP range, and it's very hard to get to that range in a 15,000 RPM hard drive environment, right? We're looking at, 3, 4 cabinets of hard drives where now I can get that same IOP, which is 4 or 5 drives. So it's what do you need, and let's architect what you need, and then again, the system scales out and scales up, so you can architect what you need for the next 3 to 5 years. If you need additional, then yes, you can add that, but at the same time, it's understanding what your needs are today, so you're not architecting and buying more than you actually need.
All right, great. We don't have much time left, so let's try and rapid fire some of these questions off. William wants to know, will the system have the capability to add a 45 gigabyte per second card into it?
I don't have any specs right now in terms of that, but I think that when we start looking at expandability, as I said before, the 3200 is our lead-with platform in terms of software-defined storage. So you're going to see us continually grow and expand this as we move into the as you start to see our hyper-converged solutions will take advantage of this architecture as well as our other products going forward. So the answer is I would expect that to be the case. We're going to continue to support the fastest performance bandwidth that we need to, especially as we move from, the different levels of fiber channel as well as iSCSI, the performance and the expectations. Dave, you want to add anything?
No, they did it perfectly. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Chan would like to know, can you dedicate some of the SSDs for cache?
Absolutely, and in fact, with the 3200, that's exactly, both the 3200 and the MSA, as well as 3PAR, all three of them are available. In fact, let me just take a second here and explain. So the 2042 comes with the two 400 gig SSD drives. That is specifically for cache. If I want to go ahead and add 2 more, that's when I can now create a separate tier for the auto tiering to be able to move that, again, warm and cold data down to nearline drives. I have that same capability again within my 3200. In fact, you wouldn't put, ideally, probably near the 6 to 8 level of SSDs is probably the maximum you had per backplane for both these systems right now. So they're really designed for a tiering environment, but also you can take advantage of these from a caching point of view. Now, the 3PAR is a little bit unique in the sense that we've got the SSDs and we've got capabilities called adaptive sparing that allows me to unlock actually storage within the SSDs and expand my cache capabilities. So that's where we actually take full advantage. We also not only provide it as a tier, but we also provide additional caching with it. So all three of them support this.
All right, great. Let's see. Where's the best place to use flash versus having a disk?
I would say really if you look at your the web-based applications, if you're looking at finance, if you're looking at marketing data, I think Flash is a great starting point there because when you start getting that responsiveness, that real-time information at the quarter's end, and you're really trying to do the crunching, Flash really can supercharge these responsiveness, right? Also, anytime you've got hits on your web servers, you release new products, right? You expect a big load. Flash can make a huge difference. This is, again, where adaptive optimization, the ability to move and not have to be locked in to that flash. That flash becomes available to these arrays as needed. And then when data becomes cold, it gets moved off. That's why we really support this hybrid architecture that allows me to control and not have to spend more money and waste performance on applications that really aren't going to take advantage or need it. Certainly databases can take full advantage of Flash, right? The crunching, anytime I've really got to crunch data or I've got to get those analytics.
All right, fantastic. So all right, guys, we are pretty much out of time at this moment.
Yes.
So thank you so much for that presentation. Do you all have any final words for our audience?
No, I would just encourage you to look over the materials, download them. If you have any questions, please talk to your MicroAge rep, and they are very familiar with the HPE products and solutions. And as you can see, there's 3 different products. There's some overlap between them, but clearly the 3200 is a great starting point that you can grow and build on. The MSA, again, is proven. It's out there. It will give you that 100 to 120,000 IOPS, and the 3PAR will continue to be the system that you can grow and build on and scale all the way up to 24 petabytes, as time goes on. So you've got 3 different choices out there depending on your needs, and encourage you to take full advantage of Flash enabling your applications.
Great. Thanks so much for that presentation. Hopefully everybody was able to learn a bit more. I do want to remind everyone, if your question wasn't addressed, somebody will be able to follow up with you. And if you had to step out or miss any part of this presentation, you will be getting an email in just a couple days with a link to view it on demand. Want to say special thanks to both MicroAge and Hewlett Packard Enterprise for creating today's content and sponsoring this great event. And thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in today. We hope to see you back soon for another Spiceworks Partner Webinar. Until then, stay safe and keep it spicy.